Hello there, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to our webinar today. This is the second part of our Get Your Payroll Done series, and we're going to focus on your month-end tasks. My name's Duncan. I'll be hosting and presenting this webinar, and I am joined in the background by my colleague Alice, who's on hand to answer any of your questions. Let's now take a look at what we'll cover in the webinar. So we're going to start with a month-end checklist, which will cover running the P32 report and submitting an employer payment summary, or EPS, where required. So we'll run through what you can see on that report and in what circumstances you need to send an EPS. We'll then take a look at reconciling reports and show you ways of checking that your pre-update reports are the same as the information you've updated in your payroll, and also how you can get a breakdown of the figures on your P32. And we're going to finish the session with a section on employment allowance, explaining the eligibility for the allowance and how that's changed moving into this new tax year, and how you can claim employment allowance in just a few clicks within your Sage 50 payroll software. And as always, we'll finish with your links to further support. So it includes useful resources such as other webinars, our Help Centre, and Sage University. So let's get started with the P32 and employer payment summary. And these tasks will form part of our month-end checklist, which I'm going to work through in the demonstration. Just the 3 items to consider. Number 1 is you need to run your P32 report, and that's going to tell you how much you need to pay to HMRC at the end of the month. The second task is to submit an EPS if applicable. So that's an employer payment summary, and it is required if there's additional information you need to report that was not included in your full payment submissions, your FPS. And the third task is to make that payment to HMRC. So that payment is due by the deadline of the 19th of the month if you pay by check, or the 22nd of the month if you pay electronically. Now, whenever we refer to month end in the world of payroll, we are talking about the tax calendar. And because the tax year begins on the 6th of April, it does mean that each tax month starts on the 6th of the month and then ends on the 5th of the following calendar month. So before you complete your month-end tasks, it is really important to check that you have completed payroll for all periods within that tax month. Now, if you pay all of your staff monthly, pretty simple to work that out. Once you've processed your payroll for that pay date within the month, you've completed all of your pay runs, and you're then ready to move on and complete your month-end tasks. But if you pay weekly, fortnightly, or 4-weekly, it's definitely worth checking that you have completed all pay dates that fall between the 6th of the month and the 5th of the following month. So, for example, we're currently in tax month 1, started on the 6th of April and ends on the 5th of May. If I have a weekly payroll where my pay date is a Friday, I would need to make sure that I've completed payroll for the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th of April, as well as the 2nd of May, which actually falls into the same tax month 1, even though it's in the following calendar month. So definitely worth doing that check before you complete the tasks that I'm going to show you. Now, before we take a look at it in the programme, I do want to go into a bit more detail as to what you'll find on the P32 report. So I have a screenshot of the 23 items that now appear on a P32. There's a couple of new items have been added for the new tax year. And working our way top to bottom, the first 4 things that you see on the P32 is the total PAYE income tax, any student or postgraduate loan deductions, the net income tax, which is those 2 items combined, and the gross national insurance. Now, this is for everyone that's been paid during the tax month, and all of this information has been submitted to HMRC as part of your full payment submission, or FPS. So this makes up most of your liability to HMRC. But there are other items, as you can see on this report, that can affect the amount that you need to pay to HMRC. And these items would usually need to be reported in an EPS, which is an employer payment summary. Now, the first one you see on a P32 is item 5, the employment allowance. And we're going to talk in more detail about this towards the end of the webinar. But if you're claiming employment allowance, you will submit an EPS to HMRC at the start of the tax year that you're claiming, and then you'll be able to reduce the amount you pay to HMRC in terms of your employer national insurance. So the amount of employment allowance you're able to claim in that month will be shown in item 5. You've then got the details of any statutory payments you've recovered, including NI compensation if you qualify for small employers relief. So those are found between items 6 right the way down to 17. And these, because they reduce the amount you need to pay to HMRC, this is the way that you're reclaiming, need to be submitted at the end of the month as part of a monthly EPS. So that could be paternity pay, adoption pay, being the main ones. It doesn't include statutory sick pay. So you can't reclaim sick pay. It's only parental payments that you recover from HMRC. The next item that can affect your liability is apprenticeship levy. So this is a charge that you need to pay if the total pay bill of your payroll, so that's the total earnings subject to national insurance for the year, exceed £3 million. So it's worked out monthly, and if you are liable to pay apprenticeship levy, you'll see the amount that needs to be paid for the month on the report. And again, that's another reason that you'd need to send an EPS. And then right at the bottom of the report, you can see the total amount due. So this is how much you need to pay to HMRC as part of your monthly payment. So we're going to take a look at how to run this report and where some of the details are then saved in your software if you ever need to go back and sort of check previous months. But if you do need to send an EPS at the end of the month, that's another one of the tasks you'll need to complete. This needs to be done by the 19th of the following calendar month. So the month of the tax month ends. And it is required if any of the following apply. So that's if you're recovering statutory payments, which is the main reason to send one. You've suffered CIS deductions that you're reclaiming. You're reporting apprenticeship levy that you need to pay. Or a fourth reason is that you're informing HMRC that no payment is due because you haven't paid anyone within the current tax period. So those are the circumstances in which you would send an EPS. So that's the theory. Let's take a look at how we do this in the program. So I'm just going to bring the slides down at this point. And for today's demonstration, I do have a payroll which contains both monthly and weekly paid employees. So you can see in my employee list, got most of them paid monthly on the last day of the calendar month. And I do have a group that are paid weekly, and they are paid, looks like on a Thursday. So 1st of May was the date they were last updated. And before we run any of our month-end tasks, we should do a quick check to make sure that we have updated records and sent an FPS for all pay dates that fall within that tax month. So a quick way to do this is to check the last updated column. And we can see for my monthly paid employees, showing the 30th of April. That's the same as the last FPS. So we've completed that pay run for our monthly paid employees. And here for my weeklies, I've got the 1st of May, which was the date that they were paid. And then the next weekly pay date, which would be the 8th of May, following that pattern, would actually fall into the next tax month. So I can be confident there that I have completed all of my pay runs for tax month 1. So I'm now ready to run the P32 report, and there's a couple of different places you can find this. So if you go into this reports option, which you find above your employee list, you'll see any reports that you've added to your favorites. And I have actually added the Form P32 employer payment record. So it's the first one I see here in my favorites. But you can find it if you go to the period end section here on the left-hand side. And it's this one just here, Form P32 employer payment record. And you can run that report kind of directly from here, or in my case, from the favorites. Another place you can find it, it's a bit of a shortcut, is if you're on your payroll tasks, you have this links section just underneath the main payroll tasks. And from here, you do have a quick link to the P32 report. So I can also run it by clicking on that link, which will then come up with the report criteria. And then we specify the tax month that we need to run the report for. So in this case, it is month 1. So I've entered from 1 to 1. If I then click OK, it'll generate the preview of that report. I'm just going to scroll in or zoom in slightly for you. And then you can see here the same items that we looked at on the slide. So we've got our tax and national insurance. So the information that we've already submitted in our FPS. Now I am claiming employment allowance, and I'm going to show you how to set this up a little bit later on, but we can see the amount of employer NI that I've been able to reclaim this month. And then I've got some details of statutory pay that I've recovered. So because I'm processing SMP at the moment, and I qualify for small employers relief, I'm able to reclaim 100% of my SMP paid and 8.5% of national insurance compensation. Now, it used to be 3% NI compensation for small employers. That has increased in the new tax year. So you can now reclaim a total of 108.5% of the statutory payment if you qualify for small employers relief. So these amounts are effectively deducted from the amount we need to pay. And we can see towards the bottom of this report, I don't have any apprenticeship levy that I need to pay because my pay bill isn't high enough. I don't have any employer NI to pay this month because all of it has been reclaimed as employment allowance. So the amount that I need to pay to HMRC is £2,151.13, and that takes into account all the items that I've been able to recover this month. You can see in the summary underneath, that was the total SMP I paid, and the amount recovered is that 108.5%. So it's worth saving a copy of this report, either printing it out to keep paper copies, or you can export it, and then you could save it as a PDF. But once you run a P32, it will also record some of the details in your company settings. So if I close out of the preview, then go to my company tasks, and then into settings, you'll see that there's an HMRC payments tab, just here at the top of the screen. And I can now see for month 1, it's tracking the amount of employer NI I was liable to pay and how much I've reclaimed as employment allowance, so all of it this month. And then it's showing me the total amount due. So this is the payment that I'll need to make by the payment deadline. And that will continue throughout the year. So tracking employment allowance and the apprenticeship levy. And the Class 1A here is just in relation to termination payments subject to Class 1A. So it's not very widely used. And then you can see sort of month by month how much you've been paying. So that's your P32 report, and that's how you work out how much you need to pay at the end of the month. Because we had an item we need to report as part of an EPS, in my case it was statutory maternity pay, I will also need to do an EPS submission. Now you do need to wait until the 20th of the current month and submit it before the 19th of the following calendar month. So that's the window that you have to submit an EPS. And when you're ready to send it, you can go to your e-submissions tasks here on the left-hand side, and you'll find employer payment summary just here. Or if you're still on your payroll tasks, again, there's a quick link to the employer payment summary in this list. Now, you won't always have to send one of these. I need to send one because I've recovered statutory pay. And when I'm ready to send it, I would click on Employer Payment Summary, which will open up the wizard. And then you just need to state the reason why you're sending one, which in most cases will be because you're adjusting your payment to HMRC because we are recovering statutory pay, CIS deductions, or you're reporting apprenticeship levy that you need to pay. Now, if the reason for sending it is that you haven't paid anyone this month, you would choose one of these reasons. So you can cover for the month, or you can cover it for an advanced month if you know that you won't be paying anyone in those periods. So I'm going to click on to next, and it will then confirm the tax month that I'm sending this for. So in my case, it is tax month 1, April. And then on the next page, it's going to show me the statutory pay recovered. So 6 types of statutory payment you can recover. And this will always display year-to-date values for the current tax year. Now, I happen to be in month 1, so it is just showing me the values I've recovered in month 1. But when I do this again next month, it'll show the cumulative total for the tax year. So it would include the SMP that I recovered in previous months as well. By clicking on to next, we've then got the box where we can enter the CIS deduction suffered. So that's manual entry. And again, it's a year-to-date value that you would enter there. And on the next step, it'll show you any apprenticeship levy that's been calculated if you're above the apprenticeship levy allowance. So in our case, we're below that allowance. Our total pay bill for the tax year is going to be less than £3 million. So I've got no apprenticeship levy I need to pay. So I'm just going to complete this wizard like so, clicking finish. Now you can ignore this warning. This is just because I'm in a training room, so it's not a live submission, but yours obviously will be submitted to HMRC. And then we've got the EPS submission screen where you can click continue. You can check your gateway registration and company details. You click on to submit, and it'll show you the tax year details. And then we click submit once more. And then you see the usual progress bar that moves across the screen. And once it's received, it'll tell you the submission of that data has been successful. So that then completes the picture for HMRC. They know about the tax and the national insurance that I submitted in my FPS. They now know about the statutory payments that I recovered, and also the apprenticeship levy, sorry, the employment allowance, which I applied for at the start of the year. And it means that when they calculate the amount payable, that should then match up with the amount I actually paid. So one last tip, if you need to track back any of the information you've sent in a previous EPS, it is available within your eSubmissions log. So if I go to eSubmissions and select eSubmissions log here, I'm just going to go to the most recent submission, which is this one that I've done just now. So it's an EPS. I can check the details. I can click more details, and that's where I can see the figures that were included in that submission. Okay, so that is our month-end checklist. So we've run the P32 report, and that's told us how much we need to pay to HMRC. Because we had a statutory payment reclaim, we've sent the EPS, and the only other task, which I can't show you, is how to pay HMRC. So do make sure you've made your payment by the deadline. So 19th of the month if you pay by check, 22nd of the month if you pay electronically. So what I'd like to look at next is a little bit about report reconciliation. Now, this is something that used to be one of your payroll year-end tasks when you used to do an annual return to HMRC. And it was a way of checking that everything in your payroll records kind of match up with what you were about to send to HMRC. But for the last 10 years or so, you've been submitting in real time. So you send an FPS each time your employees are paid. So reconciliation at the end of the year is kind of a thing of the past, but it's definitely a good idea to do a little bit of reconciliation just to give you peace of mind kind of at the end of each month. So I'm going to suggest some reports that you could run to help you check back to make sure that what was entered at the time and paid to your employees matches up with what was updated in your payroll records. So that's the main reason, I guess, for doing it, just as a check that your pre-update reports, pay slips and payment summaries, what you based your payments to your employees on, match the information you've updated. but it's also a good way of getting a breakdown of those totals that we've just seen on the P32. So there's a huge range of reports in the software that you could run. The ones that I'm going to focus on are the payment summary, parts 1 and 2. So those are the pre-update reports that we recommend that you run as part of your pay run. There are payment summary history reports, parts 1 and 2, which contain very similar information, but based on values you've updated in your program. And we're going to tie that all back to the form P32, which was what we based our payment to HMRC on. Now, I have linked to the guide on reconciling reports, but I do want to show you a couple of quick examples in the demo. So I'll just bring these slides down again. I'll just return to my payroll tasks. Now, first of all, if you're going to be running the payment summary history report, it is important that it includes all employees that were actually paid at the time. So before you go ahead and run it, a couple of things to check. First of all, go into your criteria settings and check to see if any employees are currently excluded. Now, usually you will have historical leavers excluded because they have left in a previous tax year, so they're not usually relevant to reports that you would run in the current tax year. But I would say for month 1, if you have had anyone that left in month 1, but their leaving date, left in March, but they were paid in month 1 because they're paid in arrears. If you're going to do reconciliation to make sure they appear on the reports, you might want to untick the box for historical leavers as well. Now, it will bring back all of your historical leavers, but they'll only appear on the report if they were actually paid in that period. You can come back and you can switch these boxes on at any time. Other thing to do in this outline structure, by clicking outline, is making sure you've got the all employees folder selected, like I have. Then if you click onto clear, that will just ensure that no one is selected, and it will then by default include everyone in the reports. So let's have a look at the payment summary history reports. So if I click on the reports icon at the top of the screen, again, I've added these two to my favorites, payment summary history part 1 by date and part 2 by date. You'd find these ones in the employee folder. So scroll down a little bit because they are listed alphabetically, and you should find them, part 1 and part 2. I'm going to run them by date. So they're going to group them according to the process date, which will match up nicely with the original payment summary reports I ran. And just when I run this report, it's going to ask me for some criteria values. And we're going to get this to match the same dates as the P32. So the tax month, I'm going to run it from the 6th of April, 2025, and up to the 5th of May, 2025. If I then click OK, you can see the report preview, which I'm just going to zoom into for you. And you can see there is a section for each process date. So the tax week and tax month, process date, net pay values, and totals for the process date. And you can see that that pattern continues for all of the periods that I have processed within this tax month. And it even gives us the report totals, which are some values that we could then match up with our P32. So this was part 1 by date. And again, you can print a copy or you can export it. If you wanted to save it as a PDF. You'll see similar information on part 2 compared to the pre-update report. So again, run it for the tax month. And this one gives you information on kind of tax codes, NI categories, and employer contributions, things like national insurance and pension. So again, we've got a section there for each process date. So once you've got them run, you can then compare them with your pre-update reports, just to make sure nothing changed in between you sitting down and entering those payments and when you updated records. So I do have some reports that I ran earlier that I'd like to show you. So this is the same payment summary history report, part 1. And you can see it takes you from gross to net across the screen like this. And if I look specifically at week 1, I have a total net pay value. And if that matches up with what I'm seeing on my original payment summary part 1, I can be pretty confident that all of the other numbers are also the same as what they were. So this £823.76, if I look at my original payment summary part 1, I can see I've got the same total amount as the net pay. So I can tick that week off and I can say, yes, that matches. And then you can go through and repeat for the other pay runs within the tax period. So I've got a monthly one here. I've got my total net pay for the month. Comparing that with the original report, I can see that that is exactly the same. I can also see things like my parental payments, which again appear on both reports. And I have my report totals just at the bottom down here. And if, for example, I check the total PAYE, 2382, and compare that with my P32, I can see that again, that would always kind of match up. And that gives me the breakdown of what makes up that total amount for income tax. Now, if you do notice there's a difference between the payment summary history and the original pre-update report, at that point you will need to do some investigation. So you'd need to work out what pay date is different. Is it just one employee or is it all employees? And then once you've established where the difference is on the reports, you need to work out which one is a true reflection of what the employee was paid and should have been paid. And then if it's a historical report, there's no correction you need to make in payroll, but you do need to make sure you actually paid them what was on that historical report. If it's the pre-update report and something had changed, you need to investigate why, and you might need to roll back and do a correction. So reconciliation, it is completely optional. If you've got a very simple payroll, you kind of check it as you go along, it may not be necessary. But as I say, it can give you that peace of mind that everything does match up. And it also shows you where the P32 is getting its figures from. Now, one other report you might find useful when reconciling your P32 is the P32 reconciliation report. So I'm just going to show you where to find that one. I don't think I've got this one in my favorites, but if you go to period end, you've got Form P32 Payment Summary Reconciliation. You can add it to your favorites by clicking on the star. And if I run this, just for tax month 1, you can see that this contains kind of similar headings to what you see on the P32. So again, it's another way of getting that breakdown, taking you to the total amount, things like income tax. You've got your national insurance, statutory payments recovered, and total amount due. So this one won't contain the employment allowance, but it will contain all of the other kind of key values on that report. So that is reconciling reports and some of the suggested reports. You can read more and see other reports you might want to run in our guide that I've linked to on the slide. Okay, so moving on now, we're going to talk in a bit more detail about employment allowance. So employment allowance is a government initiative which allows eligible employers to reduce the amount of employer national insurance they pay per year. And it's up to an annual amount, which used to be £5,000 per year, but has just recently increased to £10,500 for each tax year. Now, most businesses and charities would actually be eligible for this allowance. And the updated guidance on the gov.uk website says that you can claim if you're a business or public body and you do less than half your work in the public sector. You can also claim if you're a charity or you employ a care and support worker. So it's been opened up to a lot more employers than it used to be available to, as there used to be a limit on the amount of employer NI for you to be eligible for this allowance, which has now been removed. Now, to claim employment allowance, you need to apply for it at the start of each tax year or as soon as you realize you are eligible for it. And then you can start reducing the amount of employer NI that you pay to HMRC. And you can see that gets calculated on your P32 report automatically. Now, there are still a few exclusions. So excluded employers include public bodies or businesses who do more than half of their work in the public sector, or single director companies, that is a company with one director who is the only employee liable for employer NICs. So those exclusions still apply, but from April of 2025, even if you pay more than £100,000 in employer NIs per year, you can now apply for the employment allowance. You couldn't in previous tax years. Another note is that if you are a group of charities or companies, also known as connected companies, only one company within your group can claim the allowance. So you should choose a company that is most likely to claim the most of that allowance, up to £10,500. And if you have more than one payroll for your company, more than one PAYE reference, only one of the payrolls is able to claim employment allowance. So we'll show you how to apply for it in the demo, but once you have set this up in your software and you're eligible to claim it, you get the money back when it comes to make your payment to HMRC. So an example of a P32 report there, where it would itemize the amount of employment allowance you can claim that month. It'll show you if there is any employer NI to pay. So at the point you do reach that annual limit, you'll have to start paying the employer NI. And you can see that you can keep track of it in your HMRC payments tab. So that screenshot is from the previous year where you could claim £5,000, but for this new tax year, you can claim up to £10,500, and you keep claiming until the full allowance has been used. So what I do want to do is show you how to set this up, because if you set it up before you do your month one payment, you'll be able to claim from month one, so best time to do it. So let's just jump back to the demo. And I'm just going to switch over to a different payroll that I've set up that hasn't yet claimed the employment allowance. So we're at the start of a tax year. We're about to do our month end for period one. So now is the ideal time to make sure that you've claimed it. So first thing we'll need to do is navigate to our company settings, company and then settings. And you will find on your details tab that you have an option towards the bottom to apply for EA. So like I say, you do this once per tax year and that covers you for the rest of the tax year. And when you click on this option, first thing that pops up is a question asking if state aid applies to this claim, state aid rules. And because employment allowance has changed this year and it's available to almost all employers, the state aid rules are no longer applicable. So for claims for this tax year, simply choose not applicable from that drop-down list. You would then click submit, because you will need to submit an EPS. So it's the employer payment summary. It's different to the one that you send when you're reclaiming statutory payments. So you'll see this is the employment allowance indicator. It'll show yes for this submission. It'll show not applicable for any other EPS submission. Just check it's for the right tax year. We can go ahead and click submit, and that then will be sent to HMRC. Once that's been sent, all you then need to do is to tick the box to say that you're eligible for employment allowance. You will see this confirmation message. This just tells you that you won't get a letter from HMRC to confirm that you're claiming employment allowance. They do send an automated message if for some reason they reject your claim. And it will tell you that if you're part of a group, only one company or charity in that group can claim the allowance. I'm just going to click OK to that message. We've now got the box ticked. You can click OK to save that setting. And as I've completed all of my payrolls for month one, If I just go back and run that P32 report again, I'm going to run it for month 1 to 1. I can now see that I am reclaiming employment allowance, £1,850. I don't have any employer NI to pay this month. My total amount due as a result is lower. So it's had this plus the SMP I've recovered deducted from the total. So that is all set up. And when I'm tracking this, I go to HMRC payments, it's this employment allowance column that will keep a track of it, and it will stop claiming it once the total amount, the £10,500, has been claimed. So that is where you would claim it. If you realise that you were eligible for it in previous tax years, and remember in previous tax years, if you had total employer NI of £100,000 or more, you weren't eligible. But if you realise that actually you were, but you didn't claim it, you can apply for previous years as well. So just to show you how you would do it for a previous year, it's just a case of setting your process date back to the 5th of April of the earlier tax year. So in my case, could be 2024 to 25. Then you can go to the same place, company settings. You can apply for employment allowance. You would need to specify whether state aid rules are applicable. But it will also allow you to submit this claim for previous years. So this one would have been for 24-25. Now, obviously, you've already paid your employer NI for that previous year, but it does mean that HMRC can offset that allowance against current liabilities, or probably more realistically, they can pay you the employment allowance directly. So definitely worth checking if you did qualify for previous years, and if you do, to submit the claim. If you didn't do it at the time, set your process date back to the 5th of April of that tax year, and you can send it from your company settings. So I'm just ticking the box to say that I was eligible for that year as well. And then we can get in touch with HMRC to see how we're going to get that money back. So yeah, that's employment allowance, definitely something to look into, even if you weren't eligible to claim it in previous years. So that has now actually brought us to the end of what I'm going to cover in the webinar. So I am going to take you through some of the further support that we have available to you. But if you do have any final questions that you'd like to ask us, do drop those into the questions, and Alice will get an answer out to you. So some of our upcoming webinars include report favourites and selections coming up this week, and variance reporting on the 30th of April. And if you deal with HR as well as payroll, we have our HR Showcase webinar on leave management module, and also an HR advice webinar on redundancy, to pay and restructure. We've also got other topics coming up in May as well. So you're very welcome to join us at these, completely free to attend. Just head along to our website, sage.co.uk/webinars, and you'll see the option to register for live sessions, or indeed to catch recordings of recent webinars that you may have missed. We also have help available 24/7 on our online help centre, sage.co.uk/help. You can also access the same content by clicking the help icon in your programme. So as well as our knowledge base and support guides, if you do need to get in touch with our support team, simply select the topic you need help with in our help centre, and you will find a get in touch link, which will give you the best way to contact us for support. Last but not least, Sage University is our online learning resource at sageu.com. Completely free for you to create your profile and get started with our e-learning courses, our online certification and bite-sized learning. So get yourself signed up and check out what's available, not just for payroll, but for some of our other Sage software as well. So with just a few minutes left, We're just going to take a quick breather to check on any final questions. Don't forget to download the handouts if you would like them, and to submit any final questions in the Q&A. I'm going to go on to mute briefly, but I will be back in just a few moments when we're ready to close down the webinar. So I will speak to you soon. Hi again, everyone, and thank you so much for sending your questions in. Just a few of them today. It's been quite a quiet session, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us at the webinar today. Hope you found the session useful, and if you'd like to come to any of our future webinars, do get yourself signed up at sage.co.uk/webinars. With that said, we're going to wrap it up there, so enjoy the rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you on some of our other sessions in the near future. It's goodbye for now.